Check W and make my way to Atlanta, Georgia this week and finally return to the Peachtree area down there without having our pal Chris Pika give me a little travelogue as I head down there to the land of Delta and Coca-Cola. He joins us from Flowery Branch, where he is preparing for all things Bahamas Bowl, as well as the Ravens' arrival for a Falcons team that's dead on arrival, right? Like they're not the biggest story in town, but a lot going on here, Chris. I mean, I'm going to see the stadium for the first time. The Super Bowl's down there. I'm going to be an honorary Georgian for a week and a half with you on a cot somewhere down there in Atlanta, freezing. Hopefully the city doesn't ice up this time, but at least for 36 hours coming in for a football game, I feel like the Ravens can come in here and steal this one.
They could. I mean, I was in New Orleans for their game against the Saints last week, and they were basically riddled by Drew Brees, and more importantly, because they had to respect how Drew Brees' arm was. How well he throws the ball and how many passes he's completed all season long. They were very susceptible to the run, and the Saints and Alvin Kamara basically went up the middle a bunch on them, and to give up 150 yards rushing like they did was pretty astounding. They haven't really had a good middle of the defense in several years, but they were very exposed because they had to respect Drew Brees and what he could do with his arm. So what remains to be seen is, knowing the Ravens like to run the football, they're not sure how much Lamar Jackson, if he's going to be the guy in the game, or if it's going to be Joe Flacco. No one knows the answer to that yet. How the Ravens come in with a game plan with Marty Morningweg against the Falcons defense, which has had a share of troubles.
People just think you're famous for running around with Michael Jordan and Tito Francona and minor league buses with the Birmingham Barons, or from Mount St. Joe or Loyola, but you spent a lot of time in the league, man. You were in New Orleans amidst quarterback controversies and coaching switches. You were in Atlanta when all hell broke loose, and Bobby Petrino and Michael Vick and all of that. It's why you're in Atlanta, all these years later after working for the Falcons. Yeah, the Ravens have not had a building with quarterback controversies, right? Like, I have not had a radio station or platform here over 23 years where, we've had some bad quarterbacks, but we've rarely had, on Friday night going to bed not knowing who's going to be the quarterback on Sunday. I know John's digging this right now, right? But I know it's a stressor for the organization, for ownership, for the offense. Certainly, the biggest stressor it is right now is for the Falcons defense this week and trying to figure out what's going to happen, because we all sort of know how this is going to end here. This is going to end with Joe Flacco being the quarterback of the Broncos next year, or the Jaguars, or the Dolphins, or somewhere else. And it might even end with John Harbaugh being the head coach of the Packers or the Dolphins or some other place. But at least for this week, quarterback controversy, not a bad thing if you're going to play in Atlanta and they don't know what to prepare for.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're not sure exactly what you're going to get on Sunday and what to look for, I mean, is it Lamar Jackson and his feet? Do you have to worry about running backs and what they can do and what they've done the last few weeks? That's one way. If it's going to be Joe Flacco and his arm and, how healthy is he going to be in Sunday's game? Are they still going to run packages with Lamar Jackson? I would assume that if Flacco's a starter, they'll still do that. It makes for a tough week for the defensive coordinators, but I also think it makes for a tough week in the Ravens' offensive room, because you've had success with Lamar Jackson at quarterback, and the locker room's got to be looking, going, hey, we got a little momentum here. Why make the change? In this particular game where we can maybe win 3 in a row, and that's a tough spot, because you've got to have the guys in the locker room believe that what you are selling as far as your offensive game plan is going to work and you're going to continue to win. If the Ravens come into Atlanta and things don't go well for them here, and it's always possible because Atlanta does have weapons. They do still have Julio Jones. They still do have Matt Ryan. They can find ways to beat you. If the Ravens have a type of game where it's, they're disjointed because they're either trying to do things that they don't normally do, or Flacco doesn't have an effective game, they could walk out of there with a loss, and their season would then be pretty much, on the downward trend, and they wouldn't be looking too good, especially with the amount of teams that are piled up behind them in the AFC playoff race.
I think the last time we got together, we talked a lot of baseball, and because you had been tweeting about Sig Mejdal, and I read Astroball, and I highly recommend on one of your flights, Chris, that you read Astroball. It's one of the best books I've read recently, as well as Big Game. I've read a couple of pretty good books here in the last couple of months, but for the Orioles side, and we didn't talk much Ravens. What do you make of all this? I mean, it's been about a month, maybe 2 months since maybe the last time we talked, the Ravens were actually good. We're feeling good about themselves at 3-1 or 4-2 or whatever that thing was after they sacked Mariota 11 times, and the whole picture's changed, right? Where they can win this game and it's winnable. Then they have Kansas City, San Diego, or the Chargers, whatever, Carson, whatever we're going to call them, and we look at those games, but the AFC, where the Colts are right now, and all of these teams, so the Dolphins and the Bengals getting out of the way, the Steelers look vulnerable at this point, and the Ravens look somewhat healthy, somewhat veteran, and a lot at stake here for Harbaugh, for Flacco, for Lamar, quite frankly, for Ozzie and Eric DeCosta as well. I mean, there's a lot of want here to be the 6th seed, and it's sitting there for this organization. This is an interesting crossroads time when reporters are reporting that Harbaugh and Bisciotti have already made up their minds, and the organization's already made up its mind on Joe Flacco. Dude, Joe Flacco may be flicking the ball around for 2 or 3 weeks in January because they get there, and he'll give them the best chance to win in January because he's won 8 road January games in his past. So, and he's not old and broken down. This is really about them having a different kind of way to be able to do this. It's a wild story right now. This is kind of interesting and unique in so many ways right now from a narrative as a guy who's followed football for a long time. I've seen a lot of things. I ain't never seen this one.
Well, we used to say when I worked for the Saints, and it's true in the league, every game is a season. You look back over 11 weeks and the feeling after every game that you play, and in the Ravens' case, every game that they've played, and the outlook on the team shifts so wildly. It's almost 180 from where they looked early in the season to where they looked when things weren't going so well, and now to the current win streak. And you don't really know which way, ultimately it's going to point. And our good friend Rick Venturi, who was our defense coordinator with the Saints at the time when I was there, always would say, you're only a 3-game losing streak away from bagging groceries. And that's, and that's true. You're a 3-game winning streak away from being very much in the playoff hunt. The Ravens are on the verge of having a 3-game win streak and solidifying that 6th spot, but they don't have any margin for error. I mean, legitimately, they hold the keys to their season. If they were, and I don't expect them to do this, but literally, they hold their destiny. If they win their last 5, they're in the playoffs at no worse than the 6th seed. I don't expect them to go 5-0 down the stretch, but stranger things have happened. It's not an easy road, but you're just worried about the one in front of you, and that's the thing. You can't look ahead to your matchup in a couple of weeks. You can't look ahead to the Steelers matchup. You've got to worry about the Falcons and what they have here, and then you worry about the next one. So the fans sort of look at the overarching season. The general manager, Ozzie and them are looking at, how we're going to get home in 5 weeks and where do we, what do we need to do to make the playoffs. For the players in the locker room, for the coaches in their offices, it's about the next game and the next game only. Everybody else will worry about the last 5. They're worried about 1. Just go 1-0 this week, and that's the key for them.
Blog and Tackle, the way to follow Chris Pika, who is you're spoiled, man. I mean, you're South Baltimore guy. We've led good lives, you and me, and got around to a lot of Super Bowls. I know we'll be together down there in Atlanta for 10 days. I know you got some designs on making the Falcons-Ravens game here this week, but Bahamas Bowl, how many years you've been doing this now? I mean, you've been a communications director there, got new sponsorship. I want to give you a chance to plug it because it's sort of your big gig every single year, and I never figure out why you don't get a better tan. It's like you're working or something.
Well, the makers wanted Bahamas Bowl. I've been with them 5 years. It's our fifth game this year. We started in 2014. Makers wanted is basically the slogan for the very large 6 square mile business village, technological village of businesses are just outside of O'Hare Airport in Chicago, and the mayor at Elk Grove Village has been very progressive in trying to get their name out to the remainder of the country. They advertised on Cubs games on WGN for a few years. They've always thought outside the box, and this was something that they wanted to do. They wanted to be able to be a title sponsor of a bowl game and introduce themselves to the rest of the country. So this is an opportunity for them, and we've got a team. The team's already announced. Florida International, FIU out of Miami, which we're real excited about. It's the first time we've had a very close Florida team to the Bahamas in our game, and we're hoping that a bunch of their fans will hop over on boats and planes and get over to the game on game day. And Toledo, which has been a very strong team in the Mid-American Conference, the MAC. For those of you who enjoy MACtion on Tuesdays and Wednesday nights in November, they've started that more than a few times. So FIU's head coach is Butch Davis, who was a head coach at the University of Miami. He was a head coach at North Carolina and at FIU. Tremendous coach in his 12th season. They're sitting 8-4. They had a shot to play for the CUSA championship game. Unfortunately, my alma mater will be in that game, UAB, very soon against Middle Tennessee. And then Toledo was second place in their division at 7-5. So we've got a pretty good matchup of two differing styles of football. And it'll be December 21st, Friday before the holidays, 12:30 on ESPN. And we're looking forward to giving a great game for everybody in the States to enjoy while they're finishing up their holiday preparations.
Chris Pika has been my friend for many, many years, my original big brother at the Baltimore News American in January of 1984. We got sponsors that have been doing it since 1923. Charles Newsonoff and Sons. True love comes in all shapes and sizes, and there's something for everyone's budget. My pal Sydney's got you covered out there at charlesnewsonoff.com. Off 695 in Perry Parkway. You can see them there, find them online. And they've been doing it since 1923. Cole Roofing has been doing it for 99 3/4 years. Bill Cole will be here in the next couple of days as well. If you have a corporate roof space and you spring a leak, just think of Cole Roofing. That's all we ask. Also, he'll be giving me some therapy before it's all over with. Learn more at Cole Roofing as they celebrate 100 years. Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. Make sure you're downloading the Rofo app when you're pumping your gas. You're getting your Rofo coffee. They have a Bahamas blend. I know they have a Kona blend, different island, but that's all good. Western fries and the fried chicken, I love it so. It is Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. Chris, first off, I've got my Google Maps up, and my son has spent all week at the Atlantis Resort, and my dear pal John Schwartz from the Model Lyric, one of our other sponsors. My son and my pal both put up pictures in front of Atlantis within an hour of each other, and it turns out they're like in the same building at the same time. So everybody's going to the Bahamas, and let me tell you, dude, I'm going to admit this, and I probably shouldn't admit this to you. I've never been to the Bahamas.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Atlantis, which is our host resort, we put up both teams there, television crews, referees, everybody who works the game stays there. It is a huge, huge resort. And a tremendous place, especially if you have families and kids. They've got water parks and slides and everything else. The student athletes who come down have a blast down there. We take care of them for the week. And the fans get to enjoy this beautiful blue water and the great hospitality that the Bahamians are known for. It's a good spot. And it's
marine habitat. Do you get to pet like dolphins? I mean, do you get to pet like and hang out with the manatees and stuff? What's going on down there?
Yep, you can. Yes, they have dolphins that they rescued after Hurricane Katrina. They have sea lions that you can cavort with. Manta rays that they have throughout the property. It's actually the largest marine habitat in the Caribbean, and it's tremendous. And then for those of you who maybe of a different bent, it also has the largest casino in the Caribbean in the middle there. So, and a sports book. So we've got plenty going on during bowl week for those looking for entertainment.
I don't want to sound like an old guy, but is there a place I can go and just avoid kids?
Yes.
All right, I'm in.
Don't
tell my wife about this
called
place.
The Cove, and their pools at the Cove are adults only, and that. Believe me, when you hear screaming children throughout the rest of the property, it's kind of nice to go to a place in the Atlantis where it's just nothing but adults, people bringing you drinks, and you're enjoying the sunshine.
Hey, man, I had screaming kids at Thanksgiving last week thanks to the Moeller family of Catonsville. Chris Pika, not of Catonsville, but of Calhoun Street and Southwest Baltimore. He doesn't say Pigtown, but it's sort of near there. Mount St. Joe and Loyola now down in Atlanta, GA, and my lifer pal and blog and tackle and our sometimes co-host Super Bowl week, where the Super Bowl will be in Atlanta. I'm coming to Atlanta. Chris, I found out, first off, I got a room downtown on Saturday night. I was thinking about maybe moving up to Buckhead and saving a few coins, or maybe staying at the airport or whatever, kind of in and out. I hear the press box food's great at the new place. I need to get there early and all that and not eat breakfast at the Waffle House Sunday. But this is an in and out. I'm going to be downtown for 10 days, and I thought, man, maybe I'll stay up in Buckhead. It turns out you're not even allowed to go out and get hammered and throw up on your shoes in Buckhead anymore. Like, Buckhead's been gentrified. Where do people go there to party anymore, man?
Well, there's still party in Buckhead, and then there's still some neighborhoods in actually Midtown Atlanta where people go, where it's more I'll call it the millennial crowd. More people in Harper East would probably be a little more, at home there. But Atlanta's just so spread out. Where I live is about 45 miles northeast of downtown. And the traffic there is the one thing, if you haven't been, the traffic there, and you've been there, I know, for Rolling Stones concerts and other stuff in downtown, when you have big crowds in downtown Atlanta, it makes for some just horrific traffic throughout the city. And so that's the one thing you're going to note. But there are plenty of places in downtown, not far from the hotels and the World Congress Center, where the media center and the NFL Experience is going to be. Now that they've gotten sort of the area around the Georgia Dome recreated after that was demolished. So there's plenty of walking spaces, and you can get to where you need to go. And that's the one good thing. If you're inside the city limits of Atlanta, MARTA will get you anywhere you need to be, and it's quite a nice thing, especially if you can just get close enough. That's the problem, because the mass transit outside of the Atlanta area is kind of tough. At least the MARTA runs out the Buckhead, but it's still a pretty very, very nice area out there.
Man, the Falcons train where you live, right, in Flowery Branch, right?
Correct. Yes.
Man, I mean, for them to go downtown, they have to get a limo, right? It's a long way to go downtown on a Thursday night, and I know the Braves have made it easier on you by putting the team out in the suburbs, and I know we've talked about this a little bit, and with the Orioles and where they are and what the future holds here, and reading Astro Ball and knowing we're on some sort of 2024 or 25 plan, and how bad the Orioles are now, and how few people want to come into the city, and where the lease sits for Camden Yards and the family and all of that. Atlanta's the one place where the baseball team just decided we're going to press a button and move out to the suburbs. I'm going to see the opposite of that, I guess, this week, staying downtown, where Elton John's going to be playing the remodeled arena, and I'm going to go into this spaceship dome where they're hosting the Super Bowl. So I'm looking at this as a little bit of a taste, like I did last year. We played Minnesota. I got an in and out before the Super Bowl. I'm expecting big things in downtown Atlanta. I'm expecting it to not look like it used to look for me. And I've been coming down there for 30 years, man.
Well, I think the redo of Phillips certainly helps. The new stadium has certainly helped. Atlanta is growing and changing. I mean, it's a huge city. It's with a lot of sprawl. But I think there's some good things about it. But like I said, for those of us, the hard part is those of us who live out in the suburbs and live a long way from downtown. If you want to go to an event at Phillips, or you want to go to an event, concerts at the Tabernacle, or other concert halls that are in downtown, from where we live, it's a pretty good haul to get there. So, having a beer or two, then climbing back in your car, probably not a good idea, because you got an hour ride back home. So that makes it difficult. And like I said, the mass transit options outside of the city of Atlanta, getting in or out, especially in evenings, are non-existent, really, or at least not as convenient as they are during the day. And I think that makes it difficult. So, for me, entertainment options over in Athens are actually almost as close and an easier ride to get over to Athens than it would be to downtown Atlanta. But I think what they've tried to do, they tried to get Amazon there. Every city tried to get Amazon there. They've got a lot of good things going on too culturally. So if you're in the downtown area for the Super Bowl or the game this weekend, you'll have fun. I mean, trust me, you'll have fun. There's plenty of places to go, plenty of places to have a drink and hang out with friends, and and see the stadium. I'll be honest, I'm not as big a fan of Mercedes-Benz as I am, let's say, Minnesota Stadium, because Minnesota Stadium has a lot more open lighting. The dome could be a little bit dark unless they open the roof for the game, which I think the weather forecast will probably preclude them not being able to do it, at least at this point. So, but I mean, it's a nice stadium. The best part about it for the fans is, and a lot of teams in the NFL have sort of gone along with this, is Arthur Blank was basically the first team owner to say, listen, we know the tickets are expensive. We know the PSLs are expensive. You know, the food prices in there for what you get, and I was in there for the national championship game in January, the food prices in there are extremely reasonable. So
give me some sort of an example of what I would take advantage of Sunday, because I mean it's sort of legendary. I'm sure I can Google, you know, Falcons food prices, but like, and I'm doing that right now. But just an example of something that the fan first menu, as they call it.
Well, I don't think. You know, I don't think the drinks and beers are overly priced. I think they're
I got it right here. Hold on. I got it right here. You ready? Here we go. Hot dog, $2. Waffle fries, $3. Bud Light draft, $5. Cheeseburger, $5. Pizza slice, $3. Popcorn, $2. Pretzel, $2. Nachos and cheese, $3. I'm going to get them for Brooks Robinson, some nachos, Chris Pika. And souvenir refillable cup, $4. I don't want a Falcons cup. Chicken tender basket with fries, $6. You can't even get that to Varsity, man, right?
That's right. You know, and so the refillable cups for the kids, and they've got, you know, kid pricing too. So
there you go.
They were the ones that really started that, because they realized, you know, and I think all NFL teams realize it is incredibly expensive for a family of four to come to the games. How
about this family of four? I got this up here. Feed four for $28. 4 hot dogs, 4 waffle fries, and 4 drinks for $28 before you go to your seat. That's kind of incredible. I don't know. Minor league, I mean, you were in minor league baseball. There's nothing like that. That kind of deal,
no,
right?
And that was the thing. I think they looked at, you know, what people were paying to come in before they even come through the doors. And I mean, there's greed, and then there's overgreed, and we all have been to stadiums where the pricing on food and drinks and beer is incredibly expensive, and they've tried to take the opposite tact. And then, you know, trust me, the Falcons are making their money. There's, you know, they're you know, it's a nice thing to do for the regular everyday fan who's showing up for the game, but the people on the upper end of that scale are paying a lot of, you know, they're paying the freight for those for the Falcons to be able to do that. And I wouldn't say it's at a loss, but I mean, it's certainly not at the profit margins that some other sports team owners are getting from their concessions.
Chris Pika is blog and tackle, and his time is short. And look, we'll get together after the game and talk. I know you're busy getting up on the Makers Wanted Bahamas Bowl Friday, December 21st. Chris will not be working on his tan. He'll be working on the kickoff at 12:30 at Thomas A. Robinson National Stadium. One day you'll get me in the Bahamas. Chris, I hear it's better in the Bahamas, correct?
Bowl games are definitely better in the Bahamas, and we'd love to have you and Jen come down and enjoy the sun and the Atlantis for a few days. And like I said, it's a great event. So if anyone is interested or an alumni of Toledo or FIU, go to bahamasbowl.com. We have room rates available at the Atlantis, and it is, the Bahamas is very accessible from BWI down to the Lyndon Pindling International Airport in downtown Nassau.
Well, if Lamar Jackson and Joe Flacco do their dirty work, I'll be waking up somewhere in Southern California at 9:30 a.m. watching the Makers Wanted Bahamas Bowl, probably with some sort of Makers Mark drink or something. I don't know, somewhere out. Hey, man, take care of yourself. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Nestor. Appreciate it.
Chris Pika, blog and tackle, and the Makers Wanted Bahamas Bowl communications and poobah, as we like to say. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, and we're always in the buyatoyota.com audio vault. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.